This is how you make the shape. The sparkle material will be on the plane. Once you have got this shape ready, we will make a mesh, any mesh you like, and we will make a camera. Additionally, you can also add a constraint to the camera to track the emitter object. With this effect, it is important for the camera to be viewing the sparkles because the sparkles will be pointing at the camera at all times. After you have set this up, you need to select the mesh and then you need to open up a geometry node editor window. Click new. First, we need to turn this mesh into a volume because we need to distribute the points within the volume, and those points are gonna be the spawn points for the sparkles. We search up mesh to volume, turn up the density, and turn down the interior bandwidth so that we can cover all of the edges. After that, we need to distribute the points in the volume, and for that there's distribute points in volume node. And now we can see these points. Now to actually get the sparkles to spawn on these points, we can simply just drag the mesh from the outliner into geometry nodes tab, and now we have this. Now to spawn this, we need instances on points node. After plugging this in, the points will disappear because they need geometry, which is why we need to plug in the geometry of the sparkle plane. And now you can see the planes appear. To actually view them, you need to be in material view or rendered view. In order to remove the black part from the texture, we need to go back to the material of the sparkle. And this is the shape that we made before. In order to actually make this transparent where the black values are, we need to make this node setup. We need the transparent BSDF and an emission and the mix shader. You plug in these two like that. If I were to plug this in and then view that, the black parts are transparent, but the white parts are an emission, which means they are casting light, and you can control how bright it is from here. Now I'll go back to geometry nodes. We have this set up. Now, in order for these to actually point at the camera, we need to drag the camera that we're going to be using into geometry nodes. And after that, we are going to use the rotation of the instances on points node to direct the rotation. I'll go into camera view. For the sparkles to point at the camera here, we need to add align rotation to vector node. We plug in rotation to rotation, and then you plug this into this rotation. Now you just need to plug in one more socket, which is the location of the camera, into the vector of this align rotation node. And now it is pointing, but not quite. So to fix that, you need to click on relative, and that just fixes it. And now they're pointing at the camera, no matter what position they're at or what rotation they're at. I will just categorize these now, so it's easier to understand. This is the current node setup. If we want the sparkles to be randomly scaled, you need to add a noise texture node, and you can plug this into scale. To adjust it, you need a color ramp node. Now if I drag the black point to the right, they become smaller. If I turn the white point to the left, they become bigger. If you want them to be animated, you can click 3D here, and then you can click 4D. Now all this does is it gives us an extra property to mess with, which is the W. You click it and you type hashtag frame. Now what hashtag frame does is it updates the value each frame. So if I preview, they are updating each frame. Now this can be too much, so to make the animation slower, you need to divide this frame expression by using / and then a number. In this case, I'll use 300. And that makes them quite a bit slower. Now to give these sparkles a color, we need to go back into our material, and we need this object info node. Now I already have this set up, but to show you what it does, the random socket is what we need, and the random socket assigns a random color from the range of black and white to a random instance, I guess, of a plane. And then if we plug this into a color ramp and then give it colors, each of the planes become colorful. And in addition to that, if we want to change these colors on the go, we can also plug this into a hue and saturation and value node. If you change the hue value, then the color changes. Now we need to plug these colors into the emission node so that they are visible on our sparkles. If we plug this into the emission color, they all become colorful like this. And you can do whatever you want with this. This is how the nodes look for the material, and this is how the nodes look for the geometry nodes. Now we can add an animation to this by pressing N, selecting the mesh, going to Item, and then picking a rotation axis, right-click, Insert Keyframe. .360, for example. And then insert again. The keyframes are visible here, and this is how it looks. In the color management tab, if you change the view transform color space, it will also affect the look of the sparkles. It depends on your personal preference. Now, if you want to have big sparkles and small sparkles separately, you can do that by basically duplicating most of this. First, I will decrease the amount of sparkles for the big ones, and I will make them bigger. Now we need to duplicate everything that is on this side. We leave out the camera and the sparkles and the mesh to volume. We can also group this and then call it big sparkles, for example. And then now if I duplicate this and then move it somewhere else, some of the sockets will be disconnected. So we will need to reconnect the ones there are, basically just doing the same thing. And now if I preview this, it will be the exact same, but now if I change the seed of this, for example, they'll be in a different position. I can increase their amount. Now I can go down here and make them smaller, like so. And now we have small sparkles and big sparkles. And if we want to combine the two, we can use a join geometry node and then connect both of them. Now you combine the two. Here's how the geometry nodes look after cleaning up a bit. Here's how the material looks. I also have this system available on my Ko-fi shop in case anybody wants to get it from there instead, but it's a more convenient version of this. You get to control the properties from the modifiers tab, and you can also change the color of the sparkles from the shader editor using one node. Hopefully this helped.